Hello everyone. Today we're going to learn how to turn the expanded equation of an ellipse into the standard equation and how to graph the ellipse on our graph. So when you have an expanded equation of an ellipse, the first step you want to do is to turn it into a standard equation so that it is easier to graph it. To turn it into a standard equation, you need to complete the square with this expanded equation. So a good first step is to group the x's and the y's so that they're together and it's easier to know the x values and the y values. Since the x squared and the y squared have coefficients, we should factor them out so that's easier to complete the square. Also subtract 55 on both sides of the equation so that the constant is on the other side of the equation. To complete the square, I need to add something into these parentheses so that I could turn it into a square. To know what number to add in front of the negative 8x, I'll halve the coefficient in front of the x, which is negative 4, and I'll square the negative 4, which is 16. So I'll add 16. I'll do the same with the y's. Half of 2 is 1, and 1 squared is 1. So we'll add 1 in front of the 2y. But when you do it to one side of the equation, you have to do it to the other side of the equation. When we added the 16 here, we didn't just add 16. Also, we added 4 times 16, which is 64. So we need to add 64 on both sides. And with the y's, we didn't add just 1. We added 3 times 1, which is 3. So we add 3 on the other side as well. Now with this, we can turn the x squared minus 8x plus 16 into a square, which we know is x minus 4 squared. And we can do that for the same thing with the y's. On the right hand side of the equation, we can add up these numbers, which is 12. To turn this into the standard form of the equation, the right side of the equation has to be 1. So we can divide 12 on both sides of the equation. Then we're left with x minus 4 squared over 3 plus y plus 1 squared over 4 equals 1. Now we can graph this. With this equation, we know that the center of the ellipse is at 4, negative 1. Because when x is 4, that means the x part of the equation is 0. And that means that this y equals 1. So that means 4, and then you square root both sides, which is a 2, plus or minus 2, minus 1, which is negative 1, plus or minus 2, which is 1 or negative 3. This is useful to know the vertex of the equations, but we don't actually need to do the math behind it. We can look at the graph and use the numbers to help graph the equation, which will be easier. So the center is at 4, negative 1. And then we know that the bottom of the equation is 3. So that means, and since we know the bottom equation is a squared, that means a squared equals 3. So we can square root both sides of the equation, and then we get a equals square root of 3. So we know that in the x direction it goes square root 3 in both directions. Square root 3 is a little less than 2, so in the graph we can graph a little less than 2 away from each side. And we can do the same thing for the 4, which is b squared. B squared equals 4. We can square root both sides, and b equals square root 4, which is 2. So now in up direction it goes 2 as well. And we can graph this ellipse. This is how we can turn the expanded equation of an ellipse into the standard equation and then graph the equation.